Apple just dropped a new app that takes your iPhone camera to the next level, and guess what, you guys? It's free. It's called Final Cut Camera, and it unlocks a lot of new settings in your iPhone camera, and in this video, I'm gonna show you how it works. Let's just dive right in. So let's open that Final Cut Camera app, and you'll see all these new tools around the perimeter of your frame. Now, one thing you should know is that the Final Cut Camera app is designed to work in tandem with the Final Cut Pro for iPad editing app. So you'll see this icon here is specifically for what's called the live multicam feature in that Final Cut Pro iPad app. If you want more information about that, I'll link to other videos down below, but you don't need to be editing on the Final Cut Pro for iPad app in order to take advantage of the benefits of Final Cut Camera. So let's take a quick tour around these menu options because there's a lot to dig into. If we hit this gear icon here, it opens up a lot of settings. Under the Preferences tab, I can change my codec. So right now I'm set to Apple ProRes, but I could also do HEVC, which is going to be a lighter video file. To close out of this menu, just hit the X at the top right of the screen. Now let's head down to Format, and depending on which model iPhone you're using, you will have different settings here. So I'm on an iPhone 15, so I have all of the settings. I can shoot in 1080 or 4K or at this multitude of frame rates. Let's go back. Under Color and Dynamic Range, again, this will depend on which camera you're on. And so I'm set to shoot log. If you don't know what log video is, I have a video all about that I will put a card to right here and link to down below. But one thing I'm super excited about is with Final Cut Camera, we can now shoot log in 4K, and that is very new. I've got stabilization enabled here. And if you're shooting with the selfie camera, you can mirror the image, so the image is no longer flipped. Let's go back. And I do want to show you that on the left side of the screen, there are shortcuts to each of those settings. So if you just hit this pill-shaped area, it expands, and you can see I can change my frame rate from here, my frame size, my color profile, and my codec. And then to collapse that, just hit the X button. Let's go back to that gear icon because there's more tools here. I can apply a grid overlay if you're trying to stick to the rule of thirds. And I can enable my overexposure indicator and focus peaking. This helps me understand if anything in my frame is overexposed and what specifically is in focus, and you're gonna see what that looks like in a minute. Now let's take a look at those audio tools. I do not have an external microphone hooked up to this phone at this time, so all it shows me is that the source is this device. If you had an external microphone plugged in at this time, you'd be able to select it here. Let's hit the X at the top of the screen to close out of this menu. Okay, now let's hit this button to open up more menu settings. This top option allows me to lock my camera controls in the frame. So if I switch it to unlocked, and I'm going to rotate my phone to portrait mode, and now you can see that all of my tools are in the same place, but the text and numbers are sideways. I'm gonna switch it back to left, and now when I rotate to portrait mode, all of my tools stay the way they are. Let's switch on over to autofocus. If I switch over to manual, I can use this slider to change the focus on my shot. Those green highlights you see around my frame indicate what specifically is in focus. So you can see parts of the sign are in focus. And if I switch over to auto, I can actually touch the screen to set my focus, which is probably what you're used to doing in the traditional camera app. Let's close out of that and move to the next icon. I'm gonna switch from manual to auto at this point. And here I can use this slider to increase or decrease my exposure. And you can see when I increase my exposure a lot, I get these red lines. That tells me my shot is overexposed, obviously. And if I dial it down, I can make the shot look really dark. You have a lot of range here. Let's go back to manual, and here I can manually set my shutter speed, again with the slider, and then I can also manually adjust the ISO. Let's close up that icon and hit the last one here, which is for our color temperature. I can use a slider to make my shot look warmer or cooler, or if I hit where it says fixed, I can open up this menu that gives me preset color temperatures. In this case, I'm gonna hit daylight. And let's close up that menu. Now let's draw our attention to this pill-shaped menu here. This lets us switch between the different lenses on the back of our phone. So the lower the value there, the wider your shot's gonna be. And then you can hit this magnifying glass to zoom in and out from there. Using this slider, you can make really smooth zooms in and zooms out, just like with a real video camera. You don't have to like pinch the screen with your fingers anymore. This is great. I'm gonna switch to the 77mm lens, which is super tight. And I can't even zoom out with this, I can only zoom in. Let's go back to that 13mm lens. Now to record, just hit that red button, obviously. And just a few things to point out on the screen here. This red box tells me how many minutes of shooting time I have left based on the storage in my phone. You'll see these audio meters in the top left. And of course, your battery life is there too, something definitely to keep an eye on. You can stop recording and your video will appear in this box where you can play it back and take a closer look. If you want to see all of the clips you've captured with Final Cut Camera, just hit All Media. And what's important to know here is that these video clips will not be saved to your camera roll. You need to select the clips you want to send to your camera roll and hit the share button to save them there. And from the camera roll, you can make edits to these clips if you're not using the Final Cut Pro for iPad app. So that's how you use the Final Cut Camera app. This app is a must-have for anyone that has an iPhone, particularly because it's free. If you're interested to know more about Final Cut Pro for iPad, I've got videos I will link to down below. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone who watches all the way to the end. I'll see you guys again.